Hi there, I'm Machine Pun Kelly, aka MPK, and today I want to talk about trans teens and mental health. I'll be citing a lot of statistics in this video. If you want to check the sources, they're cited in the accompanying Substack article, linked in the description box below. Yesterday, Pete Hegseth, aka Kegsbreath, repeated an assertion that gender dysphoria is an illness. It is a claim often made by those on the right, but it is completely misguided, and quite honestly, is probably actually killing children. Gender dysphoria does not mean that you think you're a different gender than you are, and that it is classified as a disease. Neither of these things are true. They want to create a straw man argument where kids are just claiming to be trans because it's trendy and cool, and the libs have created this environment. And that isn't fair. The topic of trans kids in sports is an albatross that prevents us from having real, honest discussions about what it means to be transgender and how it affects kids' mental health. In America, 14% of trans teens attempt suicide every year, and 41% seriously consider it. Isn't it worth having an actual, honest conversation about to help save lives? Today, I want to find the truth using data, research, and empathy. First, let's talk about what it means to be a transgender teen. Gender dysphoria is the distress someone feels when their gender identity doesn't match their body or how society sees them. Imagine your brain saying you're a girl, but your body says something else. That mismatch can cause real pain. A 2020 study in pediatrics found that 41% of trans teens experience suicidal thoughts, and 14% attempt suicide compared to 9% and 0.7% for cisgender teens. That's a stark difference, and it's not just about the internal struggle. Research shows that affirming a trans teen's identity, using their chosen pronouns, names, or letting them join activities like sports can cut those numbers down significantly. A 2020 pediatric study found that trans teens with supportive families had 50% lower rates of depression, 22% versus 50%, and half the suicidal ideation, 35% versus 65%. Another study from 2021 in JAMA Surgery showed that trans people with affirming care, like hormones, saw a 60% drop in psychological distress. Even something as simple as using the right pronouns can make a huge difference. But not everyone's on board. A 2023 Trevor Project poll found that 45% of trans teens face cyberbullying, often targeting their identity. And 86% said anti-trans laws, like bans on gender-affirming care, made their mental health worse. That's not just a statistic. That's real kids feeling hopeless because of policies that say they don't belong. Now let's tackle a narrative you've probably heard, that trans teens are just following a trend to be cool. Some conservatives point to the rise in trans identification, 1.8% of U.S. high schoolers, per a 2021 Williams Institute report, as proof of a fad. They argue kids are influenced by peers or media, like TV shows portraying trans characters as popular, but the data tells a different story. A 2021 pediatric study found that 94% of trans teens maintain their identity over 5 years, showing it's not a phase. Most report feeling gender dysphoria for years before coming out, often privately, as a 2021 Bulletin of Applied Transgender Studies noted. This rise isn't a trend. It's a natural correction, like left-handedness increasing from 3 to 5% to 10 to 12% in the 20th century, once stigma faded, per a 2000 laterality study. The trend idea often comes from parents, especially in conservative communities, who say their kids suddenly came out as trans, but that suddenness is usually a lack of awareness. A 2021 Bulletin study found trans teens explore their identity for 2 to 5 years, hiding it due to fear of rejection. 50% delay coming out in unsupportive families, per a 2020 pediatric study. It's like how parents once missed signs of gay kids denying crushes as just friends, as a 2000 Journal of Homosexuality showed. These anecdotes get amplified by conservative media and ex-posts claiming a social contagion, but a 2022 pediatric study debunked this, finding no evidence of peer-driven trans identity. Let's talk about the elephant in the room: anti-trans laws. As of 2025, 25 states have banned gender-affirming care for trans youth, and 23 have barred trans girls from women's sports, per the Williams Institute. These policies aren't neutral, they hurt. A 2024 Trevor Project study linked care bans to a 72% increase in suicide attempts among trans teens, with 65% reporting suicidal ideation in banned states versus 45% elsewhere. A 2025 Human Rights Watch report documented 3 suicide attempts tied to sports bans alone. These laws amplify distress, not just from dysphoria, but from rejection and stigma, as a 2020 PMC study on minority stress explained. Compare this to trans-friendly countries like Canada, Spain, or Australia, where 1 to 2% of teens identify as trans, similar to the US's 1.8%. But their depression rates are lower, 20 to 40% versus 51.3% in the US, per 2023 European Psychiatry and 2024 JAMA Internal Medicine. Why affirming policies like self-ID and healthcare access reduce minority stress, showing that acceptance saves lives? A 2020 PMC study explained that discrimination doubles depression risk and family rejection triples it, per a 2021 Bulletin study. These are comorbidities, separate conditions fueled by being trans in a hostile world, not the dysphoria itself. Trans teens are being punished, bullied, marginalized, disowned, and even outlawed for trying to exist as who they really are, and all of that contributes to tearing away at their mental health. To illustrate why there is a so-called rise in teens identifying as trans, let's zoom out with an analogy. Left-handedness. In the 19th century, left-handed kids were called evil and forced to use their right hand. Only 3 to 5% were openly left-handed, but as stigma faded, that rose to 10 to 12% per a 2000 laterality study. It wasn't a trend, it was a natural correction. Trans identification, at 1.8% in the US and 1 to 2% in countries like Canada or Spain, is similar. As stigma drops through visibility, better surveys, and affirming policies, more teens come out, reflecting a stable prevalence, not a fad. A 2021 pediatric study showed 94% of trans teens stick with their identity, proving it's deep-rooted, like handedness. So why does the trend narrative stick around? It's not just ignorance, it's politics and fear. A 2023 Sociological Forum study called it a moral panic, where trans teens are scapegoated for cultural change. Conservative media, ex-posts, and books like Irreversible Damage push the social contagion idea, citing flawed studies like 2018's ROGD, debunked by 2022 Pediatrics. It's easier to blame media or peers than face the reality. Trans teens are struggling, and rejection makes it worse. A 2023 political behavior study found that trend claims boost support for bans, driving 566 anti-trans bills in 2023, per the Williams Institute. So what's the truth about trans teens and mental health? It's not a trend. It's a reality shaped by biology, identity, and society. Gender dysphoria is real, but stigma, rejection, and laws amplify the pain. Affirming trans teens through pronouns, sports, or care cuts depression and suicide risk in half. Exclusion, like sports bans or care restrictions, literally costs lives. What can we do? Listen to trans teens, support affirming policies, call out cyberbullying, 45% of trans kids face it, and question narratives that dismiss their struggles as a fad. Like left-handed kids, Trans teens just want to be themselves without punishment. We can help make that world. Thanks for sticking with me through this deep dive. Trans teens aren't chasing trends, they're fighting for their lives, and the data proves it. Once again, I'm Machine Pun Kelly, aka MPK, and thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, don't forget to click like and subscribe. If you have some thoughts on how we can help trans teens, please drop in a comment.